And we are back here at our EWTN Central Studios for Pope Benedict XVI's departure from the Vatican to Castel Gandolfo. And of course, this is the final day of Benedict XVI's papacy, believe it or not. I'm here in studio with Tom Nash from our EWTN Theology Department. Shortly, we will join Joan Lewis, our Rome Bureau Chief. And of course, Joan has been with us from the beginning, starting yesterday. She'll have some special guests. At least one special guest she'll be talking to later, an author. So look forward to that. But we wanted to talk about a couple of things, a little housekeeping just before we got started with some reflections that Tom might have, upcoming events. Remember, besides this event, we also have the closing of the main door of papal residence in Castel Gandolfo, and that's at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Check our website for all the different times zones that are available. And of course, there's the Basilica Mass of Thanksgiving for the ministry of Pope Benedict XVI. That's from Washington, D.C. That's our Basilica, today at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. And let me make sure I make a correction for those who were watching earlier this morning or in the replay after the Mass this morning. There is an event tonight at the Basilica, Truth and Beauty, a musical tribute to the Pope Benedict XVI. But it is going to be later tonight. It's going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern. I incorrectly indicated it might be on at 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, it can't be, because that is when the World Over is on. So make it clear to everybody, the World Over will be on tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Raymond Arroyo. I believe Rob Royal will be on talking about the upcoming conclave and coverage ahead. And also, I think there's a special interview with Roma Downey, who many can remember from Touched by an Angel. She's got a new project that's out there you'll have some interest in. Just a reminder, not only is Joan Lewis providing coverage as we speak today, but she's going to be doing the Rome Dispatch starting tomorrow with interviews and also wrap-ups of the press conferences. And speaking of the World Over, as we look towards next week, and you can find out our schedule on our website, EWTN.com, there will be a special World Over next week from Rome, next Thursday, March 7th. Look for that. And the whole team will be on that one, Raymond's team. And live from the Vatican with Raymond Arroyo, that will be our daily coverage show with Ray starting on the 8th. And a special edition, EWTN Vatican Daily with Colleen Carroll Campbell also will start then. We'll have at least 2 shows a day, if not 3. And Colleen will also be anchoring our new news program coming from Washington starting this summer. Now, again, EWTN is everywhere. We're on the internet. You can follow us on Twitter. Check out our Facebook page, TV, radio. Go find our smartphone apps. Just go to our website. It has all the information at EWTN.com. We also have our news site for EWTN News as well. And one other thing, we also have a special site or pages on our site that have to do with the interregnum and also the conclave, so you can check that out as well. With all of that housekeeping done, stay with us. We're going to be here for the next couple of weeks, at least our various coverage teams will be. I'm here with Tom. Let's talk a little bit just before we go out to Joan, Tom, about, it was the ceremony today. Cardinal Sodano gave some remarks, and then the Pope also gave some remarks, and one theme was in both of them, the road to Emmaus.
The road to Emmaus is an account in Luke 24 where our Lord, after the resurrection, a couple of disciples going to Emmaus who were doubting, wondering what happened there, and that he had died, and their hopes were dashed, so to speak. Well, they start walking along the road, and then our Lord basically unveils Scripture to them. He goes, "Are you so basically obtuse that you can't get the fact?" You start talking about salvation history, and then they say, "Hey, would you stay with us a little longer?" And then in the breaking of the bread,
right. A great Eucharistic image.
Exactly,
really.
yeah,
Right.
And that this is understood to be the celebration of the Mass. He disappears. Of course, his presence continues, and that draws us to faith in the Eucharist. But the thing is didn't our hearts burn as we walked along with him, and he unveiled salvation history to them? And similarly, Pope Benedict, our 265th Pope, he, in the last 8 years, has been walking with the cardinals and saying that they, too, didn't their hearts burn as he, the Vicar of Christ, walked with them, and did they not learn from him? And isn't it beautiful, though, that even though he's resigning, that he will stay with us. He will stay with us because he lives on, he's in retirement, and he will stay with them as a witness and as an example.
And a really mutual affection that's between the cardinals
Sure.
and the Holy Father, even as he steps down later today officially. And of course, we are seeing some early images. I think we just saw there the helicopter that will transport the Holy Father to Castel Gandolfo. And I think we have Joan Lewis out there. Joan, can you hear us?
I can indeed, and I'm seeing the same images you are of the San Damaso courtyard and of the helicopter that will bring the Pope to Castel Gandolfo, to Vatican number 2, as John Paul loved to call it.
That's great. Now, Joan, you have a special guest with you joining, and that's not Mary Shovlin, that I can tell. And why don't you introduce this special guest?
I will. As a matter of fact, our special guest today on the set is Paul Badi. We are longtime friends. Paul is a Vaticanista, specialist in the Vatican, author of articles, author of books, and a specialist in areas like Veronica's Veil. And I'll let Paul tell you that in a few minutes. But Paul, first of all, welcome to the set.
My pleasure.
Good to have you here. And maybe you'd like to just say a few words to our viewers in your native German. To our viewers of EWTN German.
Ich danke für die Ehre und freue mich, heute Abend ein paar Worte sagen zu können. Heute ist der 28. März. Der 28. Februar. Am 28. Februar 1982 hat sich Papst Georg Ratzinger verabschiedet als Erzbischof von München und Freising, von München. Heute aus einer fast kosmischen Koinzidenz verabschiedet er sich wieder als Bischof von Rom und fliegt nach Castel Gandolfo. Das ist immer noch nicht ganz fassbar, aber langsam wächst hier, kann man sehen, eine große Heiterkeit über dieses fast unfassbare Ereignis. Es gibt ja auch keinen Vergleich dafür in den letzten 800 Jahren. Und langsam bekommt man mit, wie hier sich die Freude in die Trauer über den Abschied mischt sich die Freude, dass er noch lebt, dass er uns erhalten bleibt.
Well, Dankeschön.
Bitte sehr.
Thank you very, very much. And one thing we are seeing, we're hearing here, and if we turn around we can see, is another helicopter. And I don't know how many times I've been working at my office nearby over the years when the Pope has gone to Castel Gandolfo, leaving for an airport for a trip, and I can hear the security helicopters overhead. So there will also be a helicopter, we've been informed, that will be following the helicopter bearing the Pope to Castel Gandolfo, and that helicopter will be providing images for us. I don't know yet if there's a commentary, but we will have images en route to Castel Gandolfo. And you know, Paul, I said it earlier today, I'm very much moved by the fact that Pope Benedict's final hours, which we are in right now, he has chosen to spend them at Castel Gandolfo. His last hours as Pope, and then at 8 o'clock he's no longer Pope, but he chose Castel Gandolfo. Does that have a meaning for you?
I think it has a technical reason, I think. I mean, because he did not want to be here anymore after being a Pope. So he wanted to leave this as a Pope, and then he wanted to arrive there as a Pope, and at 8 o'clock it's over.
It's over.
Yeah, but because he did not want to stay any
Not
more
in
minute
Vatican City,
here
right.
in Vatican City, in the Vatican, the Palazzo. Therefore, that reason he's leaving right on time.
Well, and also Pope Benedict really did love Castel Gandolfo. Being a more private person, he loved to study, he loved to read. Of course, the piano is with him wherever he goes. But he loved the small intimacy of Castel Gandolfo. When he spent his summers there, everything is on a smaller, more human scale, wouldn't you say?
In a way, yes, but we should not forget that he's not trying, that's what he said yesterday. The minute he was elected Pope, as a Pope, he realized now all the privacy would be taken off him.
Right.
And now he said, I'm not going back into privacy. So he's not going into a holiday. He is steeping up the hill where, what you said on last Sunday.
Beautiful words,
yeah, to meet God. I mean, the hill of prayers. I mean,
Right.
so, and for that reason, it has a technical reason. He couldn't go, he would have left, he would have remained right here in the monastery if it would have been ready already. But for the fact that it isn't ready, so he's parking there, but he is not going on a holiday tour there.
But you know, Paul, there's also kind of a certain symbolism in the fact that Joseph Ratzinger, Cardinal, the Pope, Holy Father Benedict XVI, whom you knew as Joseph Ratzinger, so long before he became Pope, the fact that in his modesty, in his humility, he also would not want to be in this Vatican City while the cardinals are meeting in congregations
Right.
and in conclave to vote for the successor.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be seen, he would be, as he said, nascosto, hidden, but there would always be the idea he's only 200 yards away, whereas in
Yes.
Castel Gandolfo, it's a different thing.
Yes. I agree completely, and we do have it in mind. I mean, now with all his courage, but the main, if I had only one word to characterize him, would be humble.
Yes.
He's a humble person, and for that reason, I would have betted my life that he would not step back, because I thought he cannot step back because he had such a teacher, John Paul II.
Exactly.
I mean, he showed him how to die, how to live, how to suffer all this
Right.
pain, and there was no way to go a deeper way. But now I realize, for reasons of his humbleness, he just couldn't dare to compete with this open martyrdom. So for that reason, he goes into the
Right.
hidden way. Yeah.
And don't you think really in a certain way, Paul, that if John Paul taught us how to suffer and die, is Benedict maybe, with this huge decision of courage and humility, he's teaching us how to live.
Yes.
And how to face different problems.
Yes, and that everybody, years ago, about 20 years ago, he told Peter Seewald once. Peter Seewald asked him,
Who did the book interviews
right,
with the
he
Pope.
asked him, how many ways are there to God? He said, as many ways as man exists. So that everybody's good, there's no copying. He knew that he couldn't copy in no way John Paul II, whom he admired greatly,
Sure.
and he couldn't copy nobody else. So, and he did it his own way.
But don't you think part of Benedict's strength in his personality was the fact that he was very happy in his own flesh. He knew himself.
Yes.
He didn't want to be anybody else or like anybody
Yes.
else. He was comfortable with being Joseph Ratzinger.
He was comfortable being Joseph Ratzinger, and then he did not want to diminish the fame of John Paul II. I mean, what I said, the agony of John Paul II was more powerful than all his homilies, his
Sure.
great
Oh,
homilies.
yes.
But the agony was, and so this, he left it with John Paul II. He didn't want to touch it. Now he's given another second. Now he's, had a very great fame for being a thinker, but now
Yeah.
he's starting a life as a prayer.
Yes.
It is completely, I wouldn't say new to him, but it is, nobody in the world has given so much honor to the art of praying, what he is doing now.
Now, you're German. Joseph Ratzinger, Benedict XVI is German. How did you two first meet?
Met the last century, as we have to say. My mother told me, I heard of him, that he was in Munich. My mother told me that I should meet him, should do everything and try to meet him. She said he is the hope of the church. That's what she said. It was in the beginning of in the 80s, and then I mean, as a journalist, I came to Munich and I met him.
When
on
he
that
was
occasion.
Archbishop
Yes,
of Munich, and
yes,
then
right.
made a cardinal, and
yes.
then called to Vatican.
Right, and I'm a friend of Peter Seewald, so I mean, it's a long.
Wow. And he did those magnificent interviews with the Holy Father. Now, I'm looking at our monitor here. We are seeing, for those of you who would never have been here before, we are looking at a contingent of Swiss guards and members of the papal household, staff members. I see some of the nuns from the switchboard. The Vatican switchboard is all run by nuns. And practically over our head, as we are speaking right now, is the helicopter that probably is the one that will give us the images when it follows the Holy Father's helicopter. Now, this San Damaso courtyard in the Apostolic Palace, it's a very big courtyard. And I can remember when I first came to Rome, John Paul actually said rosaries. He would appear at a balcony. It's under a clock there. And 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 people could fit in the courtyard. And the first Saturday of every month, he would say a rosary. So, and again, we are looking at the images of the Swiss Guards, who, as we've told you later tonight, because they're also on duty, wherever the Pope is, the Swiss Guards will accompany him on a trip to another country, on a brief trip to Castel Gandolfo. And so the Swiss Guards that are now at Castel Gandolfo, because their sole job is to defend and protect the person of the Holy Father, at 8:01, when he is no longer Holy Father, their job to protect him, because we won't have a Holy Father, their job ends. They will close the massive gate in front of the front courtyard of the palace in Castel Gandolfo, and then they will return to Rome, and the next time they will be on duty defending, protecting a pope will be when there's been an election and we have a new pope. So very impressive for them. And then there's a lot of information on that we'll be giving later on the town, but the Apostolic Palace of Castel Gandolfo. You've probably been there, Paul, to Castel Gandolfo.
Yes, I love it. It's a
Yes.
beautiful place, yeah.
Were you ever there when they had the observatory? And they still have the telescopes.
Yes, but it doesn't work anymore, the telescope. What you can see,
Right.
they don't use it anymore.
But
You
it's
use
an
it.
amazing place.
Beautiful,
Now,
yes.
the telescope was moved from Rome
Yes.
to Castel Gandolfo, I think in the 30s,
Right.
1930s. But then the city of Rome, as it grew, the lights got to be too powerful,
Yes.
and the telescope did not work as it should for a telescope. So believe it or not, folks, the Vatican telescope is in Tucson, Arizona. It's called the VATT, the Vatican Advanced Telescope Technology. And but the Apostolic Palace, when it housed the summer school for astronomers, and it's run by Jesuits, but they would have every 2 years a summer school, and I was invited to attend some of the day-long sessions. So it's a unique privilege. We know that. We've had these privileges that so many of our viewers would only dream of being able to have. It must be a sad moment just looking at the people in the courtyard here.
They're pilgrims too, aren't they?
It looks like some of the nuns, and I'm thinking some of well, there's many offices in the Apostolic Palace. You have the office of Monsignor Guido Marini, the office of the liturgical celebrations of the Holy Father. So you will have probably some of those personnel. Although some of this morning, some of the assistant MCs for liturgy were able to greet the Holy Father after the cardinals. And so now you see this aerial view of the San Damaso courtyard. The Holy Father will come down and get in the car, be greeted by these people, many of whom are senior members of the Secretariat of State.
There's some Polish nun there.
There, are there?
Yes, from John Paul II.
How wonderful. Now, when you see a face of someone you know, you can tell us. But again, a very sad moment, but these people, like us, they will be in expectation of a new Holy Father to serve in certainly coming weeks, we think it will be. And now, Paul, I've seen some different religious orders. I don't recognize all the habits, but I have seen the different religious orders. So, Benedict, thank you for living in the faith and truth and love. How beautiful. So that's that's going to be some of the staff members, because that is on a wall of the roof of the Apostolic Palace. Exactly. Many events take place here. You saw the Swiss Guards lined up when a head of state or government comes to visit. They Their car is driven into Vatican City and then through a specific entrance into the courtyard of San Damaso. And we have gentlemen in waiting of His Holiness who greet along with the Swiss Guard line up as an honor guard. And then we have the gentlemen of His Holiness who greet the person, and both the gentlemen and the Swiss Guards accompany them up in the elevators and then down the halls to the Pope's private study. And those are honors you and I've had as well, to have been in that private study with a very limited number of people on this planet. So we are blessed beyond telling.
And it's such a privilege to be here now. There's a cosmic volcano, St. Peter's Square. I mean, now history is happening here, and it is a history.
It is.
What he said this morning, God is in the history. The church is alive. Christ is alive in the church. We keep the incarnation going. That's what he said.
Yes,
somehow, yeah.
Exactly.
And so,
well, he wanted us to realize that he may be Benedict XVI, certainly until 8 o'clock, the successor of St. Peter, but it is Christ who is the church, who keeps it alive. So he can disappear. He can become nascosto. He can become hidden.
What
in
he said
prayer
yesterday,
life.
that he said the boat is not Peter's boat, it's Christ's boat. The Lord is the owner of the boat. The Lord is the captain. He is only the guy at the, And for that reason, he's going off board because he was lacking the strength to guide it anymore.
Those were very beautiful images of the Holy Fathers yesterday when he talked about the bark, the boat of Peter, and he referred to the days of sun and light breezes, and then the days when the water became agitated. Because of the many qualities of Pope Benedict, he's also a great realist. A great realist.
Yes, of course.
You know.
That's first of all. First of all, he's a great realist. Yeah.
And you can feel that in his writings. He didn't slough off difficult times. Oh, excuse me, I see on the image here now, the clock in the San Damaso courtyard says almost 5 of 5. That's when he is scheduled to come down and get in the car. And by the way, what you can't know now, because this is not the time to show them, behind those windows on the 2nd and 3rd floor, loggias as they're called, are magnificent paintings. There's the Hall of Maps. There are many, many beautiful frescoes. And just visiting the Secretariat of State, which is pretty much of the top floor, several sides of the top floor of the San Damaso courtyard.
The maps are beautiful, aren't they? Have you ever realized?
Oh, here's the Holy Father as he's
come down.
Is he in an elevator?
No, he is leaving the elevator.
He's leaving his.
He has no mozzetta. He is in plain white.
I think doesn't he have the zucchetto?
No, nothing. Look, he's coming in plain.
Of course, it's hard to see from here. So we have several senior cardinals. We were told that senior staff members of the Secretariat of State would be bidding the Holy Father adieu. And it's interesting because in a way it's not the Italian arrivederci, I'll see you again, it's adios, may God speed. So lots of thanks going around. This has to be as difficult, emotional a moment, if not difficult, for him as it is for all of his collaborators. But you know what, I mean, on the other hand, somebody said on a show earlier today, we're not burying a pope.
No.
So that huge, the beauty of him as a person, if not as a pontiff, that will continue.
And even in a way unknown to us now. I mean, today he promised to be obedient to the next pope as if he would become a monk now. I mean, the pope as a monk.
That was amazing.
Yes.
The Pope asked for obedience of the faithful and placing himself as one of the faithful.
Yes.
He is going
under
to
the
be
next Pope. Yes.
Under the next Pope,
Yeah.
he is going to be obedient to the next Pope. So now walking through the halls of the Apostolic Palace, and then it should be an elevator that will bring him, or has he already come down?
Bertone and Sodano, the two of them. Yes.
Okay, he was at the elevator door in that shot because he's now just going down that short hall to the San Damaso courtyard. Oh, sure. Those are the elevators that bring you to the
There's to
second
step
and
down,
third
some
lodges.
glass stairs,
Greeting all of his people,
carrying the stick.
the Swiss guards. And there's,
Applaud last time.
and looked like Cardinal Saraiva Martins, I think, was one of the people there. He's going to have a lot to think about tonight at about 10 o'clock, isn't he?
Yeah.
In the privacy of Castel Gandolfo, when his time as pontiff is over. Now, the cardinals that we see here as this morning, any of those who were heads of a congregation or a pontifical council, remain as head until 8 o'clock tonight.
Right.
Then they have to turn in their resignation. They are no longer valid heads of offices. Those congregations and offices cannot conduct any official business that would require their cardinal, their leader's signature. Well, I think that is also Cardinal Angelo Comastri at his right. He's the archpriest of the Basilica of St. Peter's. And there they are bidding a fond farewell.
But look, but yes, he gives the ring with him, yes.
Yes,
He
the
doesn't-
ring,
yeah, he
the
doesn't-
ring will be off at
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, and I understand it's not going to be smashed.
Yeah.
It is just going to be in some way disfigured. Because the papal ring is also a seal for many documents, they are going to disfigure it in such a way it can no longer be used as a signal. He sometimes, Paul, didn't he go out of the Vatican for little rides in the car? Less than John Paul, but my understanding is on a couple of occasions he did go out.
But not nascosto, not in a hidden way. You know, now you can't anymore with the security of.
Oh,
it's
exactly.
such
That is true. Heading out, the Vatican flags, the yellow and white colors of the Vatican, on the front of his car, go through the archway, drive through the Vatican gardens to the heliport. At least for a while, when he comes back and to live at the monastery, he will be able to, there are a portion, he can walk in all of the Vatican gardens if he wishes. And then there is a very nice little garden area. They were working on that last week when they brought journalists in to see Vatican City and the places where he would live. They showed us last week that
But we do have to bear in mind, I mean, that we don't even know whether he arrives there alive. I mean, it's such a dramatic time. I mean, everything could happen tomorrow, before the conclave starts, because really, as you saw it, he has become very, very weak.
Yes.
If he's using the stick, he doesn't even know how to use the stick. He's carrying the stick. He doesn't really
No,
rely
he doesn't.
on it yet.
He doesn't lean on it as he's
yes.
walking the cane. Exactly. So here we are. Oh, they're in front of the governorate right now.
Yeah.
The governorate building, if you're looking at the screen, would be on your left. We can't see it. St. Peter's Basilica is going to come into partial view. St. Peter's Basilica will be, that's the train station right there, that white building on the left. Drive through the Vatican Gardens. That is the governorate.
Yeah.
Now, when we say governorate, governorato, these are the offices that run all of Vatican City. The people who work here, one of the cardinal who heads Vatican City, the governorate, he has his apartment here. And these people work, for example, for the museums, the fire department, the pharmacy, the store, because Vatican City is just another city, just a lot smaller. And I believe that in that upper middle screen is the statue of St. Peter, if I'm not mistaken, that is on one of the hills in Vatican City. From which you can get, I was just going to say, from which you can get a beautiful view of St. Peter's Basilica. And by the way, he's going to have a lovely view, Paul, from the monastery of the Basilica.
Yes.
Very special. Oh, the gardens, folks, when you come to Rome to visit Vatican City, I'm not going to say anything for the next few weeks because they are probably, a lot of the grounds will be not open to the public. But when you come to the Vatican, do take the Opera Romana Pellegrinaggi, ORP. Take that tour of the Vatican Gardens. You will be just stunned by the beauty, by the history of the buildings. You will drive where the Holy Father is right now. And I don't know
but
if
we
he's...
don't know whether it's technically possible to continue these tours in the future. I mean,
We'll have to see because the Pope will be living there, exactly. And the gardens house the original buildings of Vatican Radio, for example. There's the Lourdes Grotto. I don't know, I didn't see the car go by the Lourdes Grotto. Not that he would stop or anything, but no, indeed, the Vatican Gardens will, it's believed, still be able to be visited by tourists. They're only small groups. But the area where the Holy Father would live would just not be accessible. Here you see the heliport, obviously. And by the way, most of the planes that, or in fact, all of the planes that the Holy Father ever uses, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, they're from the Italian Air Force. Is that correct? They always transfer.
Yes.
They always transfer the Holy Father for these helicopter transfers for sure. There he is, saying goodbye again. People seeing him off there. Cardinal Sodano just walked in front of the screen. Cardinal Laiolo on the left.
Gianna Maria.
And here you will have, I mean, you've got the gendarmes, you've got probably the Air Force people, you have the Vatican Fire Department. So,
Last goodbye.
and there's Monsignor Georg, his secretary, who just walked off camera on his right. When the Pope would go on foreign trips, he would, for many years, John Paul and Benedict took Alitalia, the Italian national carrier, to that country, whatever he was visiting, and then usually the country's airlines
National
coming back,
airline,
right? Mm-hmm. Did you ever go on the papal plane? And
Yes, as often as I could, yes.
oh, bless
recent
you!
days, yes.
How exciting! That has to be an enormous privilege to be
It was.
on.
It was an expensive privilege too for the companies.
Yeah, oh, yes, they
because
are.
The journalists, they paid the flight after all.
The journalist, I think they pay for the Pope's entourage and,
Yes.
everything else. So it would, a ticket would often be more than if you were to fly
Always.
commercially
Yes,
first class.
Yes, much
Sure.
more, yes.
Repubblica Italiana is what it says on the above the plane door, so we do
Georg,
know.
who's in there? Georg and...
Monsignor Georg, I'm not sure I saw anybody who else got in with him. Usually it's just the two. And we will probably be able to look over our shoulders in a minute. And you know, Paul, it may very well be the helicopter we're hearing that is getting these images.
Might be.
The one
yes,
right over
yes.
our shoulder. Look where it is, how
Yes,
great.
It must be. It must
Well,
be.
because there's always a security
course it is,
helicopter
yes.
too, right.
Is it only one helicopter or two?
I only see one. I only
Do you
see and
hear-
hear
yeah.
one.
So
Because
it
there's
must be, yeah.
usually, right, security. Wonderful images, though, of Vatican City. So there's Cardinal Sodano, the Dean of the College of Cardinals on the left, former Secretary of State, and Cardinal Laiolo, Giovanni Laiolo, who used to head the governorate of Vatican City State. Looks like they're going to
Look,
be
right in time. The timing is
pretty,
perfect.
5 o'clock. Set your
5
watches.
o'clock, yeah.
Set your watches, folks. Yeah. There has to be a Swiss watch around here someplace.
Yes.
Now, when I earlier saw the, oh, how beautiful,
Yeah,
the 5 o'clock
yes.
bells. Oh. It's amazing, Paul, on this set, these last days, how many of the papal events have begun or ended with bells. His final words and leave-taking of us
Yes.
yesterday at the audience.
Right.
His final words.
Yes.
The bell at noon of the Angelus.
But now it's even the biggest bell. Now it's St. Andrew bell.
Oh, you know what? They were supposed to
Yeah.
ring the bells. You're right. The bells all
the
have
biggest,
names.
Yeah, the biggest one.
Oh my gosh,
The last
that's
time.
chilling. Oh, that is awesome. Oh my
Yes, yes.
gosh. Oh, all the bells of St. Peter's, folks. Now the San Damaso clock says 5:05. That is awesome. I have no idea if that's coming through, but that's inspiring, it's emotional. Oh my word.
We had a saying in German. Did you have it too? And on Good Friday, when we stopped, the bells stopped. We used to say the bells are flying to Rome. Did you have that too in America?
Oh no,
Yeah.
I love it.
On Good Friday, all the bells were quiet.
Oh my, of
And
course.
you say now they fly to Rome, they come back on Sunday morning. So it reminds me of Sunday morning when the bells of Rome.
Well, I hope he can hear that over the motor of the helicopter.
Yeah, now it takes off. Off he is.
Wow. This is pretty special for both of us. You who have known him far better than I met him as Cardinal Ratzinger and as Holy Father, but wow.
He's taking it. Well, that's
There's him, right there.
behind me, yeah?
He just went by.
Isn't he not going on
No, he just went by over
one,
there.
but he's off already?
There he, yes. Oh my gosh. How many times I've heard a helicopter fly over my office knowing it was the Pope's security as he was in a motorcade. And now there he is. Shepherd 1. Wow.
How long will it take, do you know?
I was just going to say, I think it's about 10, maybe 12 minutes. I believe he's scheduled to land, we were told, at 5:15 at Castel Gandolfo. And then he has to go from the heliport in the gardens at Castel Gandolfo to the palace itself where he will greet the people. Isn't this amazing, Paul, that we can follow him? I mean, via another plane. Wow.
But he is so unpredictable. I would have betted too that he would show up over in front of St. Peter's Square, as John Paul II would have done so. But
Yes, exactly.
but he
At
is-
least once.
at least once. But he is so completely unpredictable.
He would be heading towards San Giovanni, south. Because I see some Roman aqueduct ruins in the southern part of the city. Over the Tiber. Oh, look at that.
It's not flying very high, eh?
No, it doesn't look like it at all. I don't recognize some of the landmarks, but on the other hand, I've never gone over Rome in a helicopter. Oh my gosh, the Colosseum. That we do recognize.
Yeah.
Okay.
Check for future.
And this is EWTN's continuing live coverage of Pope Benedict XVI's departure from the Vatican to Castel Gandolfo. On the final day of Benedict XVI's papacy, is already lifted off and is on his way. It's a 10-minute or so journey. And we've got our talent in Rome, Joan Lewis and Paul Botti, who have been giving us wonderful insights and commentary on our coverage of this event. And again, this is EWTN's continuing live coverage, part of our wall-to-wall coverage of the papal resignation, the interregnum, which will begin tonight, and then ultimately the conclave, and ending with the installation and naming of a new pope. And as we watch this, Tom, some thoughts.
Well, as the helicopter flew over the Roman Colosseum, it reminded me of our earlier discussion about the Emmaus Road account, because so many Christians died for the faith, died for our Lord in that Colosseum so many centuries ago. And what our Lord said to those two disciples, didn't you know that the Messiah had to suffer and die and then rise from the dead? And I'm sure they don't talk about what, it was just a summary, they don't say which verses. I'm sure he had to hit on Isaiah 51, among others, the suffering servant. And we see that too with the Pope, because we have seen him, even though he did not have the external sufferings as John Paul II did, he wanted to resign back as the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And Pope John Paul II said, hey, I'm older than you are. And so that was his encouragement to keep going. But then, probably unexpectedly for this Pope, he wanted to go on, retire, be the great scholar. He gets elected. And for 8 years, he carries on and carries the cross in a different way, the suffering servant of himself, taking on that role. And for 8 long years, he did that, and he did it with distinction, did it with faithfulness, and now he himself is finishing up and laying down that cross in one sense, but yet carrying it again, as he said, that he'll remain at the foot of the cross. So a transition. He is Pope Emeritus. So the ministry, in one sense, ends and continues. So we see that suffering servant. We see that witness continuing of him. And we know that from his example that all of our lives, in one sense or another, are a series of deaths and resurrections in the Lord.
And again, this is EWTN's continuing live coverage. That's the Holy Father's helicopter on its way to Castel Gandolfo. And just a reminder, we'll be staying with that until he arrives in the next 10 minutes or so, and then he'll land there. He'll greet some dignitaries on the ground, and then he will head over where he will address, or at least see some of the local people there. Then he will go in, and then our coverage will end. And then later today, we will be back with the closing of the main door of papal residence in Castel Gandolfo. Now that'll be at about 1:45 Eastern, okay? That's Eastern time, so a couple of hours from now, we'll be dealing with that. And again, just to remind everyone, as we see these beautiful images and we hear those unbelievable bells. I can imagine what they sound like for Joan, sitting there right in the square from St. Peter's. And again, the Basilica here in Washington, D.C. will have a massive Thanksgiving for the ministry of Pope Benedict XVI. That's today at 5:15 p.m. The world over, we'll have a special edition tonight at 8 p.m. with Raymond Arroyo, Rob Royal, talking about the upcoming coverage of the conclave and the interregnum, and also a special interview with Roma Downey on her new project. And then later tonight, we also have The Truth and Beauty, a musical tribute to Pope Benedict XVI. That's tonight at 10 p.m., and that's from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. And just a reminder, EWTN is everywhere. As you can see, we're following the Holy Father here live, and you can find us everywhere. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us through your mobile devices. We have a new app that's out there. It's really wonderful. Go check it out. Find out about it on our website, EWTN.com. One thing interesting while we're watching these images, we got an email from Lisa Gould, who's our Vice President of Viewer Services. And Lisa is an alumni, I believe, of Walsh University. Now, apparently, Walsh University has some students who are actually studying in Castel Gandolfo, in that town, in that area, and they were just mentioning that to us. And the reason I mentioned it too, because Walsh is in North Canton, and there's a connection there because, of course, Canton is where Mother Angelica
sure.
Was from.
And who was greatly loved by both popes, John Paul II and Benedict XVI.
And again, we can see the images of the Holy Father as he flies in, and as was mentioned earlier by Paul and by Joan, certainly at this point he's flying fairly low to the ground, whether that's for security purposes, at one point maybe for people on the ground to be able to see him. But again, he's flying over one of the local airports, it looks like, at this point in time. And again, just to recall that starting next week, we will have our coverage with a special World Over with Raymond Arroyo. That's from Rome, from our anchor position there. That will be next Thursday night. Okay, look for that, March 7th. And again, our whole schedule is on our website, and I would invite people to sign up for our wings, because that is our email newsletter that keeps everyone informed. We also will be having our daily programming beginning that Friday, that's next week, with Raymond Arroyo live from the Vatican, and also Colleen Carroll Campbell with her Vatican Daily program. Plus, Joan will be starting up her Rome Dispatch starting tomorrow, so look for that here on EWTN. It's wall-to-wall coverage from now till we have a pope, and that pope is installed. And again, just a reminder that you can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. You can join us on Facebook. And one of the things coming up, it might be a great gift, a little bit of a plug, Tom, but here we are, the end of February. We're going into March, but in April, we're going to be celebrating another event. This one, not only having a new pope in March, but Mother Angelica will turn 90.
Yes.
And that's an exciting thing for all of us here. And so we'd love to see people join us on Twitter and like us on Facebook in honor of Mother Angelica, and our Twitter hashtag, for those who know what those things mean, are #EWTN from Rome. That's our Twitter hashtag. That's all that newfangled technology out there that all the young kids were using, but now are available and are used by everybody of all ages.
Yeah, and you mentioned going until we select a pope. I suspect that's going to be before Holy Week, so that it doesn't overshadow Holy Week. But then we'll, of course, have our annual coverage of Holy Week. And then after Holy Week, Easter celebrations, culminating in Easter celebrations. And then, as you mentioned, Mother Angelica in April. So a series of celebrations.
Right,
in store.
and as we see, and as Joan alluded to and was brought up earlier today, the upside of this, unlike the last time with John Paul II, was where we had to mourn the loss of someone in this life. He died. In this way, we mourn the loss of a friend, in a sense, of someone we love and care about, and who gave us comfort. That's Pope Benedict XVI. We know who he is, so there's that little bit of trepidation, that little sense of what does the future hold for us. Though at the end of the day, we know It's guided by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I have to say, when the helicopter lifted off, it really touched me emotionally. It's like, wow, this is coming to an end. The 265th pontificate, the Pope is resigning. It's coming up very close. And so, but yet, as you say, that he's still alive, there's the comfort, and that we know the transition of the Holy Spirit continues.
Right, and speaking of transitions, as the Holy Father is flying to Castel Gandolfo, we'll transition back to Rome to our own Joan Lewis and Paul Body.
Hi, Doug. You know, I don't know what emotion to describe that I'm feeling hearing the bells, but let me tell you, I have just read Pope Benedict's last tweet. Thank you for your love and support. May you always experience the joy that comes from putting Christ at the center of your lives. I mean, that describes the man, that describes his pontificate. It's beautiful. It really is. And he had a tweet yesterday after the audience, general audience. If only everyone could experience the joy of being Christian, being loved by God who gave his Son for us. 140 characters and an amazing catechesis. We will always have that with us in our hearts. We can print it and put it on our computer screen, and as moving to me reading those words now as hearing these bells, what's it been, 15 minutes? And I think the last time I heard that was at John Paul's funeral, and then the election.
When he died.
When he died,
yes.
And at the election of Pope Benedict Ratzinger, April 19, 2005. And I don't know them all, but you may, Paul. The bells of the Vatican all have names. And I think there are 7 or 9 bells. How many?
I don't know, but I know,
they all have names.
I do only know the name of the biggest one. It's St. Andrews.
St. Andrews.
Because St. Andrew was the brother of Peter, so
of course.
Of Peter, yes.
Oh, wonderful.
And for that reason, yes, St. Andrew's bell is the biggest bell they have here. Yeah.
Wonderful. But no, it's just an extraordinary, a very special moment here in Vatican City. I cannot see the square that well from where we are, of course, but there have to be people in the square who, if they don't know what's happened by now, they're going to take a pretty good guess something's happened in the Vatican by the ringing of the bells. And I can see by the images on the screen the Holy Father getting closer to Castel Gandolfo. You can tell by the more wooded aspect of the countryside there. And I've not been to that heliport, but it's in a section of the gardens, as it is here in Vatican City. It's in a section of the gardens that is, oh, there we're getting close. It's in a section of the gardens that is private, and so he will be brought by car to the residence. Now, the town of Castel Gandolfo, it's only about 6,000 or 7,000 people, and Saverio Petrillo, the director of the Papal Villas at Castel Gandolfo, who's been in the employ of the Vatican since Pius XII. So if that doesn't earn some kind of a papal record, here we are. The Pope has touched down at Castel Gandolfo. But the director told me they expect the townspeople and then some to be in the square, which the people have been saying the rosary. There are candles lit. Choirs have been singing in the town square of Castel Gandolfo. So in a moment we will see the Holy Father leave that plane, that helicopter, his last helicopter ride as pontiff. And you saw the car there to pick him up. Castel Gandolfo, you can get just an idea. I mean, you see the grass here, not so much the gardens, but Castel Gandolfo in acreage is about 20 acres bigger than Vatican City. Vatican City is 108.7 acres, and Castel Gandolfo is around 20 acres larger, and about 27 of those total acreage is devoted to farm. The Vatican makes its own milk, produces its own eggs, makes yogurt, etc. And they're brought to the Vatican Apostolic Palace in Rome at 6 in the morning, these products. And they're brought to the papal household and then also to the Vatican supermarket. And I have often tasted their milk, their eggs, and their yogurt, to be honest. You've probably had
Yes,
some
yes,
of their goods too,
delicious,
right?
yes.
Right, Paul? Exactly.
And also the grappa.
The grappa.
They grow grappa there for the Pope. The lemons
Oh.
from the gardens. Yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, how wonderful. Well, there's nothing better, anybody who's ever just had fresh, homegrown fruit. Oh, now the Pope, by the way, will be met by here and in the square of the town of Castel Gandolfo, because the Apostolic Palace is right, it borders on one of the four sides. It borders the main square of the town of Castel Gandolfo. And the people meeting him are supposed to be Bishop Giuseppe Sciacca. He's the Secretary General of the Governorate of Vatican City. We talked about that office before that runs Vatican City State. He will be met by Bishop Marcello Semeraro of Albano, by Mayor Maurizio Colacchi of Castel Gandolfo, and then Saverio Petrillo, who heads all the director of the papal villas, and a delightful man who has more stories about popes than you could even imagine. Doesn't he have some great stories, Paul? And then the pastor of St. Thomas Villanova Church, which is also right on the main square there. The pastor is Father Pietro Diletti. And so these are the people who've been a part of the Pope's life for his years of his vacation time at Castel Gandolfo. And he chose, Paul, didn't he, a few years ago to stay at Castel Gandolfo for the whole summer period, whereas John Paul and Benedict, for his first years, used to go to like mountain areas in northern Italy. And then he just chose to stay at Castel Gandolfo.
You know, he broke his arm and he broke a finger, I think in 2010.
Yes.
Yes, up in the north.
He fell in his bedroom.
Right. And then he realized it should be better just to remain in one place and only. And he knew Castel Gandolfo by heart.
That's it.
He could get up in the night and knew where he were. So.
Well, he did one of those silly things in life that all of us get mad at ourselves when we do, and that is he got up in the middle of the night in a dark room that he didn't know and started to walk, and of course obviously hit something that he didn't know. So here we are, Benedict driving towards the Apostolic Palace. It's a very beautiful building, has an awful lot of history. Popes have been living here for 400 years. And it's really amazing because of not just the number of popes that have lived there. I mentioned the observatory that was moved there for years and the Jesuits ran that. But for example, you had Carlo Maderno, whose name you may certainly associate with architecture, was asked to come to the Apostolic Palace in Castel Gandolfo. He had completed, Carlo Maderno, in 1603, the facade of Santa Susanna Church, which all our listeners, I think, know, and our viewers, is my parish in Rome. And Maderno was then asked to be the principal architect of the new St. Peter's Basilica. And actually, Maderno also designed a wing of the Apostolic Palace that we're going to see very shortly in Castel Gandolfo. And Bernini, I loved this when I first visited the gardens at Castel Gandolfo, and you're getting a wonderful view now. Bernini, whom we think of as an architect, the Bernini colonnade right behind Paul and me here, embracing St. Peter's Square. Bernini designed part of the magnificent gardens in because there's a portion of the gardens very formal, beautiful gardens near the crypto portico and high up enough to be able to see Rome. So there's a lot of famous names that have contributed to the building of this palace, to the art, to the architecture. And I don't know if any of our views will show it, Paul, but the palace, part of the palace overlooks Lake Albano. Yes. Those very simple gardens right in the front are wonderful. And it overlooks Lake Albano, which is an old volcanic inactive crater. And it's 961 feet deep. So, but a very beautiful, peaceful view. There's part of the buildings there.
And the study of the Pope is overlooking the Lake of Albano and can look to the sea. It's like a cockpit of a jet plane. It is the cosmic study.
How wonderful. And he has basically, Paul, doesn't he, all the same rooms that he has in the Vatican in the sense of a bedroom, a living room, dining room, a chapel. I think there's an icon of Our Lady of Czestochowa in the chapel at Castel Gandolfo.
Is it? Yes.
Pius, I have forgotten right now who it is, but I know one of the Piuses. Here we are, Pius XI built a new chapel in the palace, and Pius XI reigned from 1922 to 1939. He placed a replica of Poland's Black Madonna of Czestochowa, and so he had always had a love. He'd been nuncio in Poland, Pius XI, and he always had love. Here we are, here we are. He is at the palace. His home for the next few months. Monsignor Georg with him on the right. I believe that was Vatican security bowing out of the camera. And that interesting new covering over the courtyard of the Apostolic Palace, where they can, what looks like just a framework over the courtyard, it's steel, in inclement weather, meaning the sun is too hot or there's rain, they can draw a covering. Oh, isn't that wonderful? There's the town people. Now they will be in the square, Castel Gandolfo, of the town, not of the Apostolic Palace. And you can see the towers of the twin towers of the Specola of the Vatican Observatory, the telescopes. They open up and the telescopes are inside. We might, do you think we'll see Lake Albano? Come on. The Vatican flag ever present.
Tonight the flag is going to be changed, you know.
Oh, because of the keys?
Yes. Yeah, the keys remain, but you don't have the crown anymore, the tiara anymore.
Oh, that's true, of course.
It's an umbrella.
It's the Sede Vacante
right.
flag. And a little bit of trivia about the Vatican flag. There are only 2 flags in the world whose official shape is square. One is Switzerland, the other is, oh, there's the lake. There's Lake Albano. Yeah. One is Switzerland and the other one is Vatican City. However, when you fly those flags with other flags, like at the UN or something, then they may be rectangular. So if you ever go on a quiz show, now you know the answer. Look at them, packed into the square. Wow. This is their Pope, folks. I mean, Italians consider the Holy Father their Pope.
Yeah.
And of course they do at Castel Gandolfo because of all the times that all popes in recent centuries have spent there. Grazie Benedetto, siamo all. Thank you, Benedict, we're all with you. Now you can get some kind of an idea how high up the apostolic palace is. In fact, Castel Gandolfo is one of those towns they call the Roman hill towns. They're on hills. Many of them were built around ancient fortresses. The center of these towns might be a fortress, as it was here. This was the castle of the Gandolfi family, Castel Gandolfo. Everywhere they can be, there are people. And there's apartments and so forth that overlook. Oh, thank you. The families of the Focolari movement. And there's actually a building nearby where the Focolari stay. They have places for families to live all year round because they hold conferences at a big
The
center
center of the
there.
Focolari is not too far off.
Exactly, just a couple hundred meters, I think. So you can see, we've been talking about the smallness of the Apostolic Palace at Castel Gandolfo, and so you can see how it lends itself to much greater intimacy. And all the green you're seeing in this green, that's the beginning of some of the gardens. Acres and acres. As we've seen these days, people from many countries, many nations, many languages on their banners and flags, thanking the Holy Father, the Father of this universal church. The Holy Father will be on the balcony. He was brought into the inner courtyard of the Apostolic Palace. And there is a hall on the second floor, which, when you get to the middle of the hall, there's a balcony on your right and one on your left. And on one side, it overlooks the courtyard of the Apostolic Palace. That's where, in the summer and so forth, he will be for the Angelus. And this balcony is the one that overlooks the courtyard, the main square of Castel Gandolfo. Here he goes. And that is Francesco Sforza, who is one of the longtime papal photographers. Wow. Beautiful. It's amazing to see the perspective from his perspective, Paul, to be behind him for a moment.
It's very unique because usually it never shows there. Usually he just shows up in the overlooking the courtyard.
Exactly.
And now he's overlooking the
townspeople. Well, you couldn't get them all in the Vatican courtyard, so.
Is he giving an address now? Can we hear
He's
him?
supposed to be saying some words.
Cari amici,
Here we go.
sono
The
felice
sound.
di essere con voi, circondato dalla bellezza del creato
friends.
e dalla vostra simpatia che mi fa molto bene. Grazie per la vostra
I'm happy
amicizia
to be here with
il
you.
vostro affetto.
Surrounded by the beauty of creation. Thank you for your friendship and your affection.
Voi sapete che questo giorno mio è diverso da quelli precedenti. Non
They
sono
do love
più
him.
pontefice sommo della Chiesa Cattolica fino alle 8
You know
di
this
sera,
day is
sono
different from
ancora, poi
others.
non più. Sono semplicemente un pellegrino che inizia l'ultima tappa del suo
I
pellegrinaggio
am
in
Pope of
questa
the
terra.
Catholic Church until 8
Lavorerei
tonight
ancora-
and then no longer. And then I am a simple pilgrim who is beginning the last stage of his
Vorrei
earthly
ancora
pilgrimage.
col mio cuore, col mio amore, con la mia preghiera con la mia riflessione, con tutte le mie forze interiori, lavorare per il bene comune e il bene della Chiesa e dell'umanità.
I wish with
E
my
mi
heart,
sento
my
molto
love,
affacciato
my
dalla vostra
prayers,
simpatia.
my
Andiamo avanti insieme
reflections, all
col
my
Signore
inner
per il
strength
bene della Chiesa e
to
del
pray
mondo.
for the
Grazie,
good
vi
of the
riporto
church.
adesso.
I feel supported by your enthusiasm and love, and let us go forth together for the church.
Benedetto Dio Onnipotente, si benedica Dio Onnipotente, Padre e Figlio e Spirito
With my heart,
Santo.
my benediction, my
Grazie,
blessing.
buonanotte. Grazie a voi tutti.
Grazie and good night. Thank you all. Wow.
That was his last apostolic benediction.
The last, you're right.
The very last
You
one.
are
yeah.
right, Paul. His last blessing as Pope. Wow. And all spontaneous, off the cuff, beautiful words from his heart.
Yes, beautiful and so humble.
We are live back here on our set overlooking St. Peter's Square and feeling like all of you a little lonelier tonight, a little lost. We're having this man for only a few more hours as Pope, as he told the people, and then he's going to be, like us, a pilgrim. The pilgrim church on earth. How many times do we pray that at Mass? Words which are going to take on an entire new meaning. And it just, that's the last time we're going to see him as Pope. And as Paul mentioned, his last blessing to us, to the world, to anybody watching who made the sign of the cross as he blessed us.
Yes.
And what, for you, Paul, who've known him for so long and so well, Cardinal and then Pope, you're a fellow German, what is this moment?
Honestly, I'm glad that he's alive. He's nascosto, he's hidden, but he's alive. It was the last image we saw when his last blessing, and now going into the palace, and we won't see him anymore.
Yeah.
We will see him once again when he is carried. I mean, he will be buried here
Yeah.
as a pope, and then we see him again dead. But now it's so beautiful that he's not sick. He's alive.
Yes, but you're absolutely right. The last image all of us have of him, everyone in the world who watched television right now, and those people near him in Castel Gandolfo, our last image is a wonderful smiling man in white, our Holy Father, on the balcony, and in good stead, as you said. Oh, and here, isn't this a view, excuse me, one of the views he's going to have from one of his rooms?
Yes.
Okay. We really only have time for a few final thoughts here. It's kind of hard to put our thoughts into words because thoughts are mixed up with emotions. This is a day of history for the church. We're pleased to have been a part of it. And Paul, I'm going to be going back to the studio in Birmingham in a minute, but thank you for being here and sharing.
You're most
As
welcome.
I said, we've been friends a lot of years. We'll talk about our memories over a glass of wine later, but I do want to thank everyone who's tuned in, and as Doug said earlier, we have a lot more coming, so stay tuned.
And we are back here. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Joan. Unbelievable work there in narrating, really. I'm here with Tom Nash in our EWTN studio in narrating the trip from the Vatican to Castel Gandolfo We saw that, and of course, we saw the Holy Father. Now, there will be one other event today, Tom, in about 2 hours or so, and that'll be the closing of the main door of the papal residence in Castel Gandolfo. That is today. It is scheduled for 1:45 p.m. Eastern, so stay with us. We will continue to have our coverage. A couple of things I wanted to mention one more time before I get some final thoughts from you, Tom, on what we've seen today. One of the things is tonight we have a Basilica Mass from Washington, D.C., massive thanksgiving for the ministry of Pope Benedict XVI today at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Also, we have the world over tonight at 8 p.m. And tonight's show will be an analysis of the day's events, about what's going on with the Pope's resignation, what's coming up with the conclave with Rob Royal and Father Gerald Murray, and he's from New York, and both of those men will be participating, one the priest and one with Rob Royal, with Raymond Arroyo in the coverage that will be happening from Rome starting next week. But that's tonight, kind of a preview. And also there will be an interview that Ray did a little while ago with Roma Downey and Mark Burnett, who'll talk about their new Bible miniseries, supposed to be quite good. And again, that's tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on EWTN exclusively, as always. And of course, also there is an event from the Basilica, a Truth and Beauty. It's a musical tribute to Pope Benedict XVI, and that's tonight at 10 p.m. and that'll be airing after, later in the evening after the world over. We just saw Joan Lewis, of course. Look for her Rome Dispatch starting tomorrow, and Joan will be back with us later in 2 hours when we do our final event for today. And if you want information on what we're doing, what we're covering, just go to EWTN.com. All the information is there. Just before we head out there, Tom, some final thoughts based on this last event.
It's you see the sadness. I saw a laywoman wiping tears and a woman religious, a nun wiping tears as well, because, as you say, that's the last time we're going to see the Pope, even though we're going to cover the close of his pontificate in a couple of hours. So it just brings back a lot of memories of his being elected, of his going to various places, his work with the youth in Germany, and then Australia, and then Spain last year. And I remember the storms and how they were worried about the Pope. No, the Pope's going to stay there through the storm, and he didn't leave. They're worried about the scaffolding and whatnot coming down on him. He stayed there. The millions of faithful stayed there, and it just showed all in solidarity. You know, his trips to England and being where St. Thomas More spoke and defended the church against King Henry VIII back in the 1500s, and his trip to Turkey, where he meets at the Blue Mosque with the Imam and also with the Ecumenical Patriarch, and Bartholomew, the Ecumenical Patriarch, affirming him and expressing his gratitude of working toward full unity between the Orthodox and the Catholics, and just other visits to the Holy Land. Just a lot of memories, a lot of appreciation for all he did, all of his talk about Vatican II, and that this isn't a discontinuity for some people who want to think, hey, Vatican II means we get to change the church's teaching.
That there was a rupture or something.
Yeah, and that somehow we've get to change, for example, various teachings on morals and, you know, the primacy of conscience in an erroneous way, that we get to be our own magisterium. Right. Or other people who said, boy, you're cut off from tradition in the past. No, it's hermeneutic of continuity, as he pointed out. And just dealing with, you know, atheism and other things, the dictatorship of relativism and going against all that.
And that's what we're going to be seeing in the next couple of weeks. And that will be that continuity. There will be another Pope elected. We will be covering that here from EWTN wall to wall. We'll have Raymond Arroyo with his Live from the Vatican program starting next week. The end of the week, also our daily EWTN Vatican Daily program with Colleen Carroll Campbell as well. That's all next week. We will cover the interregnum. We will cover the conclave. We will be there when the white smoke comes out, and we will be there when the new installation happens. And we'll be there, as you mentioned earlier, Tom, throughout Holy Week, all the way through Easter for that continuity. And the one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about Pope Benedict, and I was thinking about, you know, John Paul II always said, coraggio is so important. And you think he had this courage that people could see. He was brought upon the stage. But Benedict, in his own humble way, in the things that you were talking about, showed that kind of quiet determination, that courage it's a little different, but it's still courageous.
Absolutely. And for a man who wanted to retire years before he became Pope and yet continued to persevere at the encouragement of the Holy Father, and then unexpectedly, as I said, wanted to maybe go on, be the scholar, the writer, do those things, he becomes Pope. And he has to embrace that great mantle. And he does it for 8 years. And you figure most popes don't live to 85 and going on 86 in April. So he showed great courage, as you said, great faithfulness, and he will soldier on in a different way as Pope Emeritus. And he, part of the humility that you mentioned is recognizing if he's not able to do the job well, then he can resign. And as Pope, he is free to do so. And with confidence, Doug, not saying, hey, walking away, not being a coward as some people would think. No, not at all. He's, my goodness, look at the witness he's given as both Pope and before then. But rather saying, there's someone who can do this better than I right now, and having the faith that this is not my boat, this is not our boat, this is Christ's boat, and Christ will sustain us.
And he said that, and obviously entrusting that this is something, he took the mantle of Peter when he felt like he was told, in a sense,
sure,
yes, by the Holy Spirit to say yes, and now he felt like he was given the answer to say, yes, you can.
And it wasn't a
step
spur of the
down.
moment decision, Doug. He thought about it for a good long while. We mentioned in past coverage, not today per se, but he visited the grave of Pope Celestine V, who himself resigned. Of course, he had a very short pontificate, this pontificate almost 8 years, and so that he goes forward and he's like, I'm Pope number 265, there's going to be Pope number 266, and the church will continue.
Thanks, Tom. And we will be back in about 2 hours or so with our continuing live coverage of the Pope, and that will be the closing of the door. We'll see the Swiss Guard changed out there. Just a reminder, EWTN is everywhere, internet, Twitter, Facebook. Check out our website, EWTN.com, and don't forget to keep us between your gas and electric bill so we can cover events like this the way we have to cover them to compete with the secular media. I'm Doug Keck. We'll see you in a bit.